then there should be uh, a competition between this alkyl group and this alkyl group. So which will migrate faster? Okay, when we say uh, a competition between equatorial fluorine and axial fluorine will always migrate faster compared to equatorial fluorines. Axial, sorry, it is reverse. I'm sorry. Equatorial fluorine always migrates faster when compared to axial fluorine. Equatorial fluorine will always migrate faster compared to axial fluorine. So that means this fluorine will migrate faster compared to this fluorine. So what we will get a 7-membered ring, and this is the fluorine which is migrating. This is not migrating. And this is tertiary butyl. So always remember, an equatorial fluorine will always migrate. It is simply because when fluorine is at axial place, the dipole moment of this fluorine, it will be pointed towards fluorine. The dipole moment of oxygen will be pointed towards oxygen. That means both are in opposite directions. When these two are in opposite directions, the dipole moments, they will cancel each other to some extent, so that the resultant dipole moment will be lower. When the dipole moment is lower, we can say the molecule is stable. But see, when we have equatorial fluorine, the equatorial fluorine dipole moment will be towards fluorine. Oxygen dipole moment will also be towards oxygen. So both are parallel to each other, or we can say they both are in the same direction. So when both the individual dipoles are in the same direction, then resultant dipole will be even larger. In that case, when fluorine is in equatorial position, it will have high dipole moment, so it is less stable. That means the configuration where a fluorine is at equatorial position is less stable compared to the configuration where fluorine is at axial place. So that is why, because it is unstable, this carbon will migrate easily compared to the carbon bearing axial fluorine. Okay. So just remember, equatorial fluorine carbon will always migrate compared to axial fluorine. Right, please take a snapshot. I'm going to change this page. Okay, the last example. So when we do Baeyer-Villiger oxidation on this carbonyl, the carbonyl, the alkyl group which migrates is not this tertiary, but instead it is the secondary. Okay, so this is again an exception. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So in this case, it is not the tertiary group which is migrating, tertiary alkyl group which is migrating, but it is the secondary alkyl which is migrating. Okay. I'll give you the mechanism. Again, when we want to explain the mechanism of six-membered systems, we must adopt chain transition states. So when we take chain transition state and think that this is above the plane, then it will be like this. When we treat this fellow with hydrogen peroxide, what happens? First, this carboxylic acid, it will undergo peroxide generation. So this carboxylic acid will undergo oxidation so that it generates percarboxylic acid. Then this percarboxylic acid now will do Baeyer-Villiger oxidation. So with lone pair, it will attack here so that this carbon oxygen double bond will be breaking. Remember, the first step is carboxylic acid will be converted to per acid when we do oxidize this fellow with hydrogen peroxide. Then when you look at the ring sizes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is again a 6-membered ring. This is the peroxide, and here we have O minus. Right. Then what happens? This O minus will again polarizes back to generate the carbon oxygen double bond. Then one of the alkyl groups, either this alkyl group or this alkyl group, has to migrate to this oxygen so that this bond will break. Right? Right. In this case, uh, in six-membered chain transition states, what we should say, the leaving group and the incoming group, they will have SN2 mechanism fashion, where in SN2 mechanism fashion, the incoming nucleophile will come exactly in the opposite plane to the leaving group, right? So that means if the incoming group is in one plane, the leaving group will be in the opposite plane. Similarly, in six-membered chain transition states also, when we want to break a bond or when we want to uh, remove a group, then the incoming nucleophile, it must be also from back bond, or we can say in this case it is called anti-periplanar bond. Anti-periplanar attack or migration. This is migration, right? So it should be anti-periplanar migration. What is this anti-periplanar migration? The leaving the bond breaking, which is undergoing breaking, the bond, this bond and the bond here, they should be parallel. Okay, look at this bond and this bond, they are parallel. So when this bond breaks and it adds here, and this bond will be breaking. Okay, when we look at this, see, this is exactly in same plane, but it is back side, it is front side, it is like asymptote fashion, right? But when we look at this bond and this bond, they are not parallel. That means they are not in the same plane, they are in different planes. Okay, so this is what is called anti-periplanar migration. When we want to break a bond, the incoming nucleophile should also be from a parallel plane, from a parallel plane. Okay, take this. Okay, so just take 2 or 3 pages gap before we start reductions. At the end of the chapter, it is a good practice to write the summary. Okay, so you try to write the summary of all the reagents which we come across in oxidations. Okay, otherwise I will post the summary in the group. Okay, right. So next we will see reductions. Okay, so what are reductions? Reductions are exactly opposite to oxidations, where in case of oxidations we are adding an oxygen by removing hydrogens or by breaking carbon-carbon bonds. In reductions, what we do, we will add hydrogen to the carbons. Okay, so basically that is what we are going to do in reductions. First we will see heterogeneous catalysis. When we look at the heterogeneous catalysis, generally we use nickel, platinum, palladium, rhodium, iridium, and ruthenium for the reductions. Okay, so these are the mostly used metal catalysts: nickel, platinum, palladium, rhodium, iridium, and ruthenium. When we look at the reactivity, reacting capabilities of these reagents, the order of reactivity of metals with propene is given by rhodium is always higher reactivity, rhodium, iridium, ruthenium, so they will have no selectivity. Okay, then platinum, palladium, and then nickel. Mostly these are used as heterogeneous catalysts. These are used as homogeneous catalysts. Of course, we can also use iron, cobalt, osmium, but these are generally not used for reduction. Okay, iron, the reactivity order we have given iron, cobalt, and osmium also, but they are not used as reducing agents. Okay, so these are highly reactive. There will be no selectivity when we use these reagents. So that is why they are used in complex forms. So they are used as a homogeneous catalysis. These are used in homogeneous catalysis. These reagents which I have underlined, these are used in heterogeneous catalysis. So in reductions, what we will do, we will add a hydrogen molecule. So we use hydrogen gas along with this any of the metals to reduce a double bond. Generally, the reductions are surface reactions. So we just need less than 10 mole percent, less than 10 mole percent of catalyst in all these reduction reactions. Less than 10 mole percent of catalyst is enough for heterogeneous hydrogenation. This is called hydrogenation because we are adding hydrogen gas. What we do here in reductions is we will take an alkene, then we will reduce this alkene with some metal catalyst and hydrogen. So what happens? The hydrogen molecule will break down to hydrogen atoms and it will attach to each end of the alkene. So on this carbon it will have one hydrogen, on this carbon it will attach one more hydrogen. So this is what a general reduction is. Generally these heterogeneous reductions, they are all surface reductions. They are all surface reductions. So when we say these are surface reductions, say for example if it is a metal surface, then hydrogen gas will undergo will undergo homogeneous breaking, and it will be adsorbed on the surface of the metal. It will be adsorbed on the surface of the metal. It is just adsorbed. Then when we add an alkene, of course alkenes are electron rich, metal is electropositive, so they will always have some electropositive electron rich interactions. In this case it is a pi electron cloud, which is we can say pi complex. So when this molecule forms a complex with metal surface, that means when it is interacting with the metal surface, the alkene will come close to the metal surface. Then the adsorbed hydrogens, they will add to this double bond one by one. Okay, so in the first instance, what happens? One of the hydrogen will shift to the alkene. So one side hydrogen will add, and the other side it will attach to the metal. So it is adsorbing on the metal. And in the next step, this hydrogen will also transfer to the double bond, so that the metal surface is free now, and the reduced compound, it will, because it doesn't have double bond now, so there will be no interaction between these two molecules, so it will be leaving the metal surface. Now the metal surface is free, then again one more alkene can come and form a complex with this metal surface, then adsorbed hydrogens will transfer one by one to the double bond, so that it gets reduced and it will be leaving from the metal surface. So this is how heterogeneous catalysis occurs. So mostly it is a radical process. So in these reductions, what we use hydrogen gas along with the metal surface. So hydrogen gas is the second lightest gas. It is the second lightest gas. It is highly flammable. It looks like pale red in color. So because of these properties, it is also used as a fuel. Right. Now we will see all these catalysts one by one. First one is platinum. Platinum is generally available as platinum oxide. Platinum oxide. It is also known as Adams catalyst. Adam is the scientist name. So it is known as Adams catalyst. It is more reactive than palladium. Since it is more reactive, so it is less selective. Platinum oxide is a very strong reducing agent. Then palladium. It is available as palladium on activated charcoal. It is available as palladium on activated charcoal. Because it is a costly reagent, palladium is a costly metal, so generally what we will do, we will make a powder and we will adsorb palladium powder on activated charcoal, that means carbon. Okay, so generally it is available as 5% or 10% wet. Okay, so it is 5% adsorbed on activated charcoal or 10% adsorbed on activated charcoal. So that is what we call it as palladium on carbon. So this is called palladium on carbon. So we will represent with a slash palladium adsorbed on carbon charcoal. So generally we will have two types of reagents, 5% palladium adsorbed on charcoal or 10% palladium adsorbed on charcoal. And palladium is a pyrophoric material. That means when it is exposed to oxygen, it will immediately catch fire. So it is a pyrophoric material. So when it is exposed to oxygen, it will catch fire. So that is why, to avoid any accidents, fire accidents during handling the reagent, generally palladium on carbon is um, made wet. That means we will add some amount of water so that it becomes wet. Then water molecules will cover the palladium surface so that the palladium surface is not available for oxygen. Okay, so that we will not have any accidents. So this is less selective compared, this is less reactive compared to platinum. So we will have more selectivity when compared to platinum. So because it is pyrophoric, we must also be very careful when we are doing the reaction. After completion of the reaction, what we generally do is we will filter to separate the catalyst. Okay, catalyst is a solid compound, and our reagents, reactants, and reactants are liquids. Solvent is also a liquid. So catalyst can be easily separated by just filtration. But when we do filtration, palladium will be on the filter paper itself, so that when it gets dried, then palladium easily catches fire. So you must be very careful when we are filtering palladium. Okay, so filter it is not a problem, but immediately transfer it into a wet chamber so that again the palladium surface will be covered with water. Okay, so otherwise if you are filtering it and if you leave the uh, filter paper there itself for some time, because it is pyrophoric material, it immediately catches fire and it may lead to a great accident. Okay, so to avoid that in the organic industry or research laboratories, what we will do, immediately after filtration, the palladium, the filter paper itself will be dumped in a moisture moisture tub. Okay, then the next reagent is Raney nickel. We call it as RANI, Raney nickel. Raney nickel is generally obtained by hydrolysis of nickel aluminum. When we do hydrolysis with sodium hydroxide and hydrogen, what happens? We will have nickel metal and then sodium aluminate AlO3 plus 3H2. This is the gas. Then what is important in case of Raney nickel is, Raney nickel, the metal is not like a complete hard precipitate. It is like a sponge-like material. Raney nickel will be like a sponge-like material with more surface area. So because of that more surface area, it will absorb all the hydrogen evolved in the reaction. So a fresh Raney nickel will absorb all the hydrogen gas evolved in the reaction, So when we are using Raney nickel for reduction, we don't need to use any additional source of hydrogen gas. Okay, because Raney nickel itself has some hydrogen gas adsorbed on it, so that will take care of reduction. Okay, we don't need to use additional hydrogen gas cylinder, but it should be fresh. Okay, but when you keep it for long time, slowly it may undergo desorption, so that hydrogen gas may escape from the surface of nickel. Okay. Fresh Raney nickel absorbs much of the hydrogen produced in the reaction. It is sponge-like material. And most importantly, this is also pyrophoric. Pyrophoric. That means when Raney nickel is exposed to oxygen, it will immediately catch fire. Okay, so this is even strong pyrophoric compared to palladium. So that is why it is always